Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday, and I guess it's happy hump day halfway through the month. And they always say halfway through the week, but whatever, it's halfway through the month. So happy hump month. I hope you guys are all amazing, healthy, happy, and thriving. I know a lot of people say they're just surviving, but I like the word thriving better. So I hope you guys are all thriving and not just surviving. I am going to do the normal this week, which is answer your guys' questions and answers. Not just answer your questions and answers, but you know what I mean. Answer your questions as well as go over happy news and go over the updates for what's going on in the real estate market locally as well as further away. Okay, so now I have all my tongue twisters out of the way. So I will get to the first question, and it comes from Kim in Midland. So Kim in Midland says, I'm redoing the outside of my house, landscaping, deck, fire pit, etc. My husband wants glass railings, but I can't justify the price. What do you suggest? And any other things you think we should include in our backyard/front yard reno? Thank you, Kim, for asking. So to be honest, unless you're on the water, I don't think it's worth it either to do glass. So I have glass railings there, but it's obviously water view, right? So unless you have a water view, I would also skip on the glass railings because it is quite pricey. For things to add extra, I honestly just like some lighting. So you have some solar lighting or something. Some kind of lighting. Just a lot of people do, I have flagstone down to the fire pit, I have this, I have that, I have blah, blah, but then it's like pitch black at night. And so obviously if you just have some kind of lighting, it just helps with mood, ambiance, etc. So I would just make sure you include that. If you could do like a cute little pergola area, with the string lights and so forth, whether you have a hot tub under that or you just have seating, etc. That is super helpful as well, okay? But thank you for asking. So I'm going to go over a couple things before real estate. So there was a judge, and he basically was in front of a convict, and the fellow was 27 who he was standing in front of, and he could have given him the maximum penalty or what have you, which was 20 years in prison. And whether he saw something in that man that reminded him of his son, or I don't know, but basically he gave him no time in jail, and they just gave him parole. And he said, next time I see you in court or next time I see you in general, you better have made something of yourself, which is a lot of pressure, but he did give him 20 years off. So this fellow ended up getting his GED because he was a high school dropout. It was a drug charge, by the way. And so he got his GED. He ended up going to bachelor. I don't know what they call it in the States because it's all different levels than ours. But eventually he got a scholarship. He went to law school. He got a job at a lawyer's office, just basically doing miscellaneous odds and ends, researching, etc. And then he went to write his bar exam. He wrote a 1,200-page plus thing about why he's changed and turned his life around. And then he went and obviously surprised that judge and showed him what he had done. So I thought that was super cool. Now the guy's in his 40s and a lawyer, and before he would still just be in jail right now. So the guy cut him a break, and obviously it worked out for him. So I like that. The next question comes from Justice and Barry. So Justice says, we currently have a variable rate. Do you think we should lock into a fixed rate in case rates go up? I'm afraid our mortgage may skyrocket. Thank you, Justice, for asking. To be honest, I'm a real estate broker, not a mortgage broker, so you should consult with a mortgage broker. However, you could lock in. More people are always just on fixed rate than variable just because they find it easier to know every single month what their payments are going to be. Hi, Margie, how are you? As opposed to it being like 1 month 1,000, 1 month 1118. I'm just making up numbers. Usually people's mortgages are more than that. But just saying, but I would, chat with one of them. But I've done in the past before, I've told even if the rate jumped from 2% to 4%, it doesn't mean that their mortgage doubles, okay? So let's just say your mortgage is $1,600. It does not go to $3,200 just because the rate went from 2% to 4%. So don't think just because the rate doubled that your mortgage doubles, okay? So I would talk to a mortgage broker. However, if they do announce today that rates go up, it's not going to double, even if the rate did double, which it's not going to double. But I will talk about that more later, okay? But most people think it's not going to go up till fall of 2022. But thank you for asking. So obviously September 11th was the other day, the 20-year, anniversary, so to speak. So there was a fellow named Keller, and since he was 6, he wanted to be an astronaut. And he didn't quite have the grades for it, but obviously he was a smart man because he got his degree in aerospace engineering, which I can't imagine would be easy. But on September 11th, he was 29, had a wife at home, and he was on one of the planes that crashed. So obviously he never got to fulfill his dream of potentially getting to space, etc. So then fast forward, to closer to nowadays, and there's this astronaut, and he's been to space a number of times, and normally he takes like memorabilia about his family, his kids, and so forth. But this time he decided he wanted to do something different. So he started to read a whole bunch of articles about people that had passed in the event. And he found this one fellow that he felt he was kind of kindred spirits to, which was that man that I mentioned to you that wanted to be an astronaut since he was 6. So he contacted his family, and he got some of the man's ashes. He got the man's picture along with his wife. And he got like some pins from his university and so forth, as well as some memorabilia from the September 11th museum. And he took it up with him in space, scattered the man's ashes. So even though he didn't officially get to go there, in spirit and soul, potentially he's up there. So I thought that was really cute. He also took pictures and just words of encouragement for like young children and so forth to go after their dreams. So I thought that was cute. The next question comes from Brad in Alliston. Hi, Scotty. Happy live. Brad from Alliston says, what would your advice be for my son who's 21? He hopes to one day buy a house. Thank you, Brad from Alliston. Thank you, Brad from Alliston, for asking. My words are all over the place today, but it's all good. That's a part of lives. So your 21-year-old, I don't know if he lives at home with you, but obviously the longer he can live at home, the better, the more he can save. Even if he wants to move out, I would suggest having a bunch of roommates. So let's just say instead of moving into a basement apartment, let's just say he's paying, $1,600 a month for a 1-bedroom, and instead he moves to a place that maybe is like $2,200 or something, but he has like 4 or 5 buddies with him, right? So his cost is a lot less. That heart is so big, Philip. It took up my screen. Thank you. That's sweet of you. So that's what I suggest, saving money that way. And then obviously if he has a BMW versus like a beater type car, so not to be all like bling bling, to save money and so forth, not to do things excessively wherever he can save possible. And then when he does buy, most likely he's going to have to buy a bit out of the area. So out of metropolitan areas, he might have like a 40-minute drive to work every day, a 55-minute drive, etc. But say, for example, right now, instead of say buying like $775 in town, and he buys like $430 or something in Midlands, only a 40-minute drive, save $300 and whatever, $40,000, $50,000 and drive that little bit, So it's still going to go up in value in Midland, just like it will here, but it can help him get in his foot in the door first. So thank you for asking, and that's very sweet of you for looking out for him. Hopefully he wants to do the same. So one more thing before I do the real estate update. So town decided to do stuff with tiny homes. So not just tiny homes like, hey, I'm going to have an Airbnb, or hey, this is going to be my weekend cottage, or, what have you. It's hard to, I find it a tongue twister, Albuquerque. So in Albuquerque, they have like a big homeless population. So they have this whole thing called Tent City. And basically there's so many people in Tent City that they actually write the numbers of the tents in front with chalk, because when they come home at the end of the day or what have you, they don't remember which tent is theirs because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of tents. So they started this little thing with tiny homes. So the tiny homes don't have a kitchen in them. They literally just have a little bedroom, a desk, and a bathroom. And then there is a kitchen and common area and a library, so people can go and stay there while they transition out of homelessness. And it does cost them $30 a month, and they also have to help clean and do gardening and so forth. And they have to have been clean for at least 10 days before they enter, and then they get regular drug tests throughout. But the reason they didn't do the kitchens, which some other areas have done kitchens when they do like tiny homes for homeless people, etc., is they wanted them to like make friends and so forth in the common areas. So I thought that was cool. Anyways, it is real estate update time. So before I do that, just a reminder, so we're halfway through the month. On the first of every month, we do a $2,500 giveaway, which we call the rent payment / mortgage payment giveaway. So on the $2,500, oh my goodness, on the first of every month, you can check in at 9 a.m. and hopefully I can speak by then. I have 2 weeks to practice speaking. And you can come on at 9 a.m. and I will surprise somebody live with $2,500. They do not have to be a client or anything of Cripps Realty. They just have to live in Simcoe County and they have to be home. Like sometimes people say like, oh, they're in PEI that week or they're in Vancouver that week or whatever. I'm not driving to PEI or Vancouver. So they do either have to be home or in Simcoe County. They could be at work. We have surprised people at work before, but they do have to be in Simcoe County, okay? And they have to be over the age of 18. So send us a written or a video submission to info@crippshomes.com. You were going to say that was my giveaway voice, Scotty? I do not want a road trip, Scotty. Okay. So for real estate, I've talked about it before, but it's happening more and more. Basically, there's a bunch of different towns that are participating in this, not to say giveaway because it's not free, but another town just outside of Rome. It's a 800-year-old town. So they're participating in this $1 or €1, I should call it, sale of a house. So they literally just sell the house for $1, which is basically $1.50 Canadian or $1.49 if we want to be exact. And so there's some stipulations to it. You have to put $5,000 into reno, which is obviously easy to do. $5,000 is very easy to do. You do have to own it for 3 years. You can't just buy it for $1 and sell it the next day for $20,000 or whatever. I don't obviously know the value there. And they do want you to live there at some point. So you can't like never live there for the 3 years, etc. They do want you to live there at some point, and it's not just bound to homes. It could be a restaurant you could buy. You could buy an old hotel. You could buy a bed and breakfast. You could buy a factory. I don't know. There's basically everything because their population is aging so much. So they figure it's a 3-part win basically, because otherwise these buildings eventually will get condemned and not taken care of, etc. They also said then it'll raise the population, so people aren't like 80, 90, 100, etc. that live there. It'll be a younger demographic. And then also it helps the first-time buyers get into the market. And just so you know, you don't have to be a first-time buyer to buy this home, but just as a side note, it helps young people get into the market. So that is something that's happening again in Europe, more so. Okay, so interest rates. So there is basically not a poll, but a thing that's going to come out today from the Bank of Canada to say that if interest rates are going to go up or not, as well as they called it the Canada's inflation rate guide. And so that all comes out later today. So economists, like a lot of people are like, today's the day, they're going to up the interest rates, like prices are going to go down, etc. But 99% of economists say they're not going to go up until fall of next year. So just depends who you listen to, but I think the economists know more so. So they're saying, again, not until fall of next year. But for that inflation rate thing that's supposed to come out today, they do think it's Canada's going to have the highest inflation it's had since 2003. When that comes out today, just basically people are overspending, which we already know. So I'm not going to go over all of the specifics of what's going on with like NDP, Liberal, etc. I will a bit, but I have gone over it already the past 3 weeks. So I'm not going to go over it in full detail just because I really don't feel like going over it in full detail again. So you can watch last week's, but I will go over bits of it, okay? But before I do that, so we just got August statistics last Thursday. So before I do locally, which I will do locally, both Vancouver and Toronto, they didn't show any sign of the market cooling, okay? So normally people look at Vancouver and Toronto first. Sometimes they look at Montreal, not always, but they did not show any signs of cooling, okay? And although they're putting out that thing today, like, hey, are the interest rates going to go up, etc., they're saying the main things they're going to look at is employment bounce back, as well as if it naturally just, corrects itself. Because normally there's different times they're busy in real estate, and obviously the more inventory there is, then it's not as much of a seller's market and so forth. So certain times they're like, oh, the market's down and less is selling. Yeah, well, because everybody's on vacation right before their kids go back to school, or do you know what I mean? So they're just going to see if it naturally corrects itself. But again, economists are saying not until fall of 2022. They're also saying they're going to watch closely the U.S. bank, because basically they're saying if our numbers get too out of whack, then that'll mess up the loonie, which will mess up export. So they don't want to make our numbers too crazy. So what am I going to say now? Oh yeah, different parties. So none of the different, whether it's Liberal, NDP, People's Choice, Conservative, etc. Nobody is talking about if the interest rates go up, because obviously they're all just wanting people's votes. So if they talk about the interest rates going up, then obviously it's even harder for people to buy homes, which already it is hard for people in general to buy homes, let alone first-time buyers. So they don't want to be like, oh yeah, regardless of what I say, if the interest rates go up, it's still going to be hard for people, right? So nobody's basically mentioning about the interest rates going up next year and people not being able to afford to buy even more so. So one economist is basically saying until they unlock certain land and until they get more lax on giving permits and so forth, they're saying it doesn't matter what anybody says. And I, to be honest, would have to agree with that, because with like approvals and rezoning, etc. So we have a client, for example, right now, and she's trying to buy her neighbor's property, just like a parcel off of the acreage. And the township told her that in 8 to 10 months, they should have an answer if she can buy it or not. And that has not like putting a shovel in the ground. She has not asked to build on it. She's not anything. She's literally just asked, can I sever off this piece of their property? And 8 to 10 months just to say yes or no, let alone building, right? So obviously with our lack of inventory and new builds not being able to keep up with all the amount of people that are coming to Canada, etc., that is not helping. So a different economist, not that other one that I mentioned before, she said unless the towns and cities have a complete like overall of, you know, their permits and their building departments, etc., that basically nothing's going to change regardless of what the parties say. That's still going to take too long to get, you know, new inventory, changing, let's just say 5 homes in a row, tearing them all down and building 30 units, etc. They're just saying the process takes too long. So she's just saying regardless of 7-year mortgages, 10-year mortgages, saying, oh, we'll build this many homes in 10 years, this many homes in 4 years, etc., they're still saying that it's not enough. So jumping away from politics a little bit, because politics drive me batty a little bit. What are the main things that people have been doing during the pandemic to update their home when they go to sell it? So the main things people have been doing is flooring, painting, kitchens, and bathrooms. Kitchens and bathrooms are the most expensive of those things. However, the main things that people look at are kitchens, bathrooms, and floors. And then the main things they ask, when was the roof done? When was the furnace done? When were the windows done? Or how old are they, etc. So that's why people keep doing them. But yeah, so kitchens, bathrooms, most expensive. Obviously, kitchens are the most expensive out of those, but they do hold value. And please, please, if you redo your kitchen, do not keep your old crappy appliances, because that just looks ridiculous. You have this gorgeous new kitchen and then you have crappy appliances. I just saw 2 of them yesterday, so please don't do that. Also, please change your lighting fixtures, because if you have, I call it like the boob light, right, that comes from the builder with the little thing on the bottom, or the fly catchers, which is even older than the boob light, or I call it them the like beauty pageant lights that are like above the bathroom, and they just have all the light bulbs. Please, please change those. It's not expensive to go to like Bouclair, Home Depot, Lowe's, Rona, wherever, and get new lights just to update it and not have those crappy fixtures, please and thank you. So back to politics. So conservatives are saying about a 7 or 10-year mortgage. So basically, I know you're like, oh, 25-year mortgage or whatever, but that's the amortization. But basically, normally when people get their mortgage, they either pick a 1-year, 2-year, 3-year, or 5-year. And the conservatives are wanting a 7 or 10-year, which would obviously help more people get mortgages. Just keep in mind that if they do get in or what have you, that if you were to happen to pick a 7 or 10-year mortgage, to make sure that you check what your penalty is, because even though people often get 5-year mortgages, etc., oftentimes people refinance or they move in 1 or 2 years and then they have a big penalty. So most people don't stay in the same home 7 or 10 years, except like older generations. So if you do happen to get a 7 or 10-year mortgage and that happens to come into place, please just make sure you check what your penalty is, because it could be costly, okay? So yeah, that's their main plan for that, is to make it easier for first-time buyers. They also want to remove the stress test. So the stress test is basically makes it harder for people that are self-employed, for contractors, or let's just say somebody is working at Honda, but they're just on like a casual contract or something like that. It makes it hard for those people. So they're but they're saying if you vote for us, we will remove the stress test, which just went up from 4.79 to 5.25 June 1st, and they're saying they want to remove it. So I just wanted to give you guys an example. So let's just say, sorry, hi guys, how are you? Hi Christina. It's hard to see everybody in there and sometimes I forget. So for example, so if two people lived in a home or one person, whatever, but let's just say the income, whether from one or two people, is $125,000. So if they have 20% down and the rate is 2.44, they're approved for $600,000. Okay, so their payment every single month is going to be $26.69.90. Okay, so if you make $125,000 at the rate of 2.44 right now with the stress test, you're approved for $600,000. If they remove the stress test, you are approved for $800,000. So you just jumped from $600,000 from, I don't even know what you're getting for $600,000, obviously depends on the town or city, to $800,000, which obviously you have a lot more options. Then your payment went from $26.69 to $3,600 and change. So $1,000 more, but you can get $200,000 more worth of a mortgage. So that is what they are trying to do. What else was I going to say? Okay. So the conservatives are also saying if you are a non-resident and you buy a property in Canada, that you do have to actually move to it. So you can't be a non-resident anymore. But the Liberals just in general want nobody to buy from outside of Canada. But other people are saying, well, in the past, since COVID and so forth, our market has gone crazy and nobody has been buying from elsewhere. So some people are saying that won't do anything. But just like that other lady was saying, that none of it will do anything unless the towns and municipalities let people rezone and do building permits faster and so forth. So it depends who you ask. So NDPs, they want to take mortgages from 25 years to 30 years. Again, I've gone over all of this in more detail in the past 3 weeks, so I'm not going to go over it at all of it in detail, but also, so some people like that because obviously then they can be approved for more if it's a 30-year mortgage as opposed to 25, but they do want to put capital gains on your primary residence, which is obviously not making people very happy because normally your primary residence is exempt from capital gains and you would just have to pay it if it was a rental property or, what have you like that. And so a lot of people don't like that. So that is not getting them votes. So locally, so obviously that was not locally. So locally, so from Bradford to Orillia, there were 423 homes that sold in August. So we just got, again, August statistics last Thursday. So that is 34.7% less than sold August 2020. So some people were like, oh my God, 34% down. Like, that's so crazy. The bubbles burst and the world's over or whatever. So if we look at the 5-year average, it's 2.8% down from the 5-year average. And if we look at the 10-year average, it's 4.5% down. So it doesn't sound as bad as when we say 34.7% down. However, in that time, there's been 4,693 homes that sold. Okay. So again, 34.7% less homes sold. However, 4,693 homes have sold this year so far. So from January 1st to the end of August, and that is 25.6% more than September 1st of 2020, okay? So even though some things are down like month over month, over for the full year, we're 25.6% up from Bradford to Orillia, okay? So again, some weeks I do just Toronto, some weeks I do just all of Canada, etc. So this is locally, again, Bradford to Orillia. So a detached home in August now averages $773,500, which is up 35.1%. And the average townhome is $537,400, which is up 40.8% over last year. However, they're saying the average townhome is $537,000. I honestly don't know where you can find a townhome for $537,000 in Barrie, because we just sold 2 this week, one for $710,000 and one for $715,000. And one was like 28 years old. It was an end unit, had no neighbors behind, and the other one was not an end unit and had an unfinished basement. So where they're finding townhomes for $537,000, I have no idea, but supposedly that's the average. Then the average condo is now $462,000, so that's up 32.2%. So I know I just said a lot of numbers there, but just to recap, so detached are up 35.1%, townhomes are up 40.8%, and condos are up 32.2% from August 2020 to August 2021, okay? And I know, but like I said before, all of this has happened with no foreign buyers, okay? So again, some of, NDP, Liberals, etc. are all saying like blah, blah, blah. NDPs and Liberals saying we don't want them buying at all. Conservatives are saying, fine, they can buy, but they have to move here. But all of this happened. All of the market went crazy when we didn't have anybody buying from China, etc. Okay? So the average price of all homes in August, whether it's waterfront, condo, mobile home, townhome, link home, etc., was $841,012. So $841, which is up 26.1% of August of last year. And then year to date of everywhere, so every type of home, not just detached, etc., was 807,100. So that's up 32.7% over last year, and that's all of Simcoe, which they divide from Bradford to Aurelia. Okay, and then if we did just Barrie, for example, the average sales price in Barrie in August was $726,268. I just like saying 726 is easier. And that was up 32.2%. So basically it's super close. One was up 32.2%, one was up 32.5%, which is insane return on your money if you own a home. And then in August, from Bradford to Aurelia, $355.7 million in real estate changed hands. People bought and sold. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to see like the little bubbles of people. I think that's Tiff and Christina. I can't see, or Laura. Anyways, hope everybody's well. So the next question comes from Nick and Oro. If you guys have questions, you can write it in here, or if you're shy, I will just answer people from throughout the week. So Nick and Oro said, I recently bought an Airbnb in Halliburton, but one of my neighbors are driving me nuts. How should I deal with them? Thank you, Nick, for asking. I was going to say at first when you said from Oro, because Airbnbs are not common in Oro, so I thought you were going to say you had one there. But unfortunately, there's not always, but usually going to be neighbors that don't like it. So you can say like, hey, I have everything set out in Airbnb. I say no parties. I make sure they have reviews. I have the highest deposit possible. I remind them the day before they check in, no parties. I remind them the day of, no parties. But not everybody listens, right? So if they are to throw a party, they are welcome, obviously, to call the police, bylaw, noise, etc. You can't like hold somebody's hand. You could have cameras there. You could have, there's these apps, not apps, but devices, kind of like a smoke detector, but it tracks, don't ask me how, I'm not techie. It tells you like how many cell phones are in the home. So if you say it only sleeps 6 and it says that there's 27 cell phones in the home, then they'll notify you. There's also ones for sound. So let's just say it gets above a certain degree, of sound wise, it'll notify them, and you could either cancel their listing or you could call them, etc. So there's certain things you can do, but if they've lived on that property for 40 years and they're used to one person living next door as opposed to however many you're renting it to, obviously they're not going to be the most fond of it. But all you can do is say, I'm following as many rules as possible. Unfortunately, it kind of is what it is. You're doing all the steps you can. Hopefully you are. And that'll make them maybe feel a bit better, or I don't know. They just might not like you. So sorry. Okay. So next thing randomly is, I know it sounds weird, but lawn chairs. So that sounds weird. So in Minneapolis and Nashville, and what was the other one? Baltimore. Basically, there was some locals that started to call the police and ask for the most dangerous neighborhoods around. And basically, they're just going there and putting lawn chairs because they're saying if people don't feel safe to drive there, then they just don't feel safe in general. So they're like, if we just go and sit there, so somehow, don't ask me how, it's disrupting like people doing crime and so forth. So in Minneapolis alone, crime went down. So they started doing this in June. Crime went down over 40% for homicides, which they averaged 11 homicides a month there before this happened, as well as aggravated assaults and rapes also went down. So don't ask me how it's really working, but I thought it was cool. If crime can go down, I'm good with that. Tanya from Aurora asked a question. So she said, my brother wants to buy a house with me, but I feel our expectations and mindset about the outcome is too far off and it's just asking for trouble. Do you think I'm overanalyzing the situation? Thank you, Tanya, for asking. That's pretty common that people have different, opinions, whether, I don't know if you guys want to live there or you want it to be an Airbnb or what have you. But if you strictly say, okay, you're paying for this, I'm paying for this, you know, I'm in the upstairs unit, you're in the downstairs unit, or I get it every July for 1 week, you get every August for 1 week again, because I don't know if you're living there or you're using it short-term rental or what have you. But if you really detail it all out, like you can't just be like, oh, he's my brother, he would never screw me, or blah, blah. Like if you really detail it out and you guys still can come to an agreement, then I be fine with it. But unfortunately, I've seen tons of people, spouses, mother and daughter, brothers, best friends, etc., and they do have different expectations, and you've already noticed it from the beginning. So if you could nip it in the butt and either make sure everybody's on the same page, or just do it separately or not at all, because it does sometimes ruin relationships, friendships, etc. But yeah, if you can be super detailed, and just make sure even with the lawyer, so if one of you, God forbid, were to pass, you know, is it going to their will, or is it going to their spouse, etc. So everything's super, super detailed of how everything's going to be handled. If you want to, you know, wait 5 years before you do the roof, he wants to do it tomorrow kind of thing. Like everything's detailed. An electrician is called. Who's paying for that? What if it's an emergency thing and like he wants to wait till the next day and you say no, it has to be done that night? Do you know what I mean? Like super, super detailed of every little thing, whether it costs $100 or $100,000. If you detail it all out and you still all agree, then I'd be fine with you going ahead, but otherwise I wouldn't. But thank you for asking. Okay, so thinking outside of the box, and I was gonna say even in the garbage can. There's a lady, and she's, when she was 31, she quit her job, which was at a grocery store, and she decided to go after a passion, which was being basically an entrepreneur, but an artist. And she started to make things from garbage. So the reason she did was not because she just wanted to make things from garbage, was because art supplies are really expensive and so forth, and she was on a budget. So she would originally ask her friends for their garbage, and then if she wanted like specific, she would post on Facebook, etc. So she makes these things now. Sometimes they take her 10 hours, sometimes they take her a week, and she'll use like remote controls, she'll use plastic utensils, she will use extension cords, she'll use ping pong balls, she even used a catheter. I don't know how she did that, but anyways, she uses all of these things, and some of the things have sold upwards of $5,000. So I just like that she went after her dreams. She didn't stay stuck in a job that she didn't like, and obviously she's helping the environment. So that was cool. Okay, next question comes from Denise and Barry. So Denise and Barry said, I know that kitchens are important, but everything's so back ordered. Can I just sell my place as is? Hi Denise, thank you for asking. So yeah, you absolutely can. It is still a seller's market. So if, for example, you're like, hey, my kitchen will arrive December 20th. That is obviously not a great time to sell your home. Whereas right now, there's really not a lot of inventory, and we're in our second busiest market of the entire year. Not less busy than spring, just a shorter window. So it's still a great time to sell. And because there is no inventory, and because it's not like, hey, here's the 47 other homes that they can look at, they're probably saying, oh, I need a 3-bedroom. Oh, I need to be in this area because of a school, or I want a double garage or whatever. I bet you their wants list has less than 5 homes on it. Like I guarantee that it does. So again, it's not against all these dozens and dozens and dozens or hundreds of homes like it has been in prior years. So you're still in the driver's seat. So I'd say you're still totally fine. But I get your frustration because I ordered a fridge and they told me November, and I ordered it in May, and then they told me February. So I get your frustration, and you're fine to still sell now, and you'll still get top dollar. What was next? Okay, so sounds. I wouldn't have guessed this, but supposedly sounds are more important to people and making them happy than sight or smell. I would have guessed sight if I had to. Seeing somebody I haven't seen in a long time. Obviously, I don't know, smell I wouldn't have, but I thought sight would have, but supposedly sound is. So they did this survey of 2,000 people, and that was the primary. 91% of people said that they would pick sound over smell or sight. So 67% of those people said those sounds are outside. So 78% said they like to spend time outside, and 84% said they spend at least 5 hours a week outside. The main things that people said what they like to hear, I thought they were going to say like a laughing baby, or I don't know. Laughing baby wasn't on the top 10. They said a certain song gets them happy. Waves or sounds of water, birds, a fireplace. I'm going in order from 1 to 10. Walking on fresh snow, which I didn't think would be on the top 10, but anyways. The sound of a waterfall was number 6, a cat purring. as number 7. Number 8 was trees blowing in the wind. Number 9 was rain on a window. And 10 was rustling leaves. The lightning storm PS last night was cool behind me. It was just all like sparklies. It was like fireworks, but better. Yeah, Scotty, sorry, I just saw your one message. They are sitting on lawn chairs. So they're literally just going to like the most dangerous parts of their city and just sitting on lawn chairs. And then it's like throwing off the crime, and because I guess normally people aren't in that area. I don't know. Or it's like rougher people in that area and then they don't want to do things in front of those people. I don't know. But it's more than 40% that it's gone down. So just since June. So it's crazy. Anyways, just a reminder that the first of the month is coming up. So if you guys want to nominate somebody for the $2,500 giveaway, please do so. Yes, nature's fireworks, Scotty. It was so beautiful. So please nominate somebody again to info@crippshomes.com. I hope you guys go after all of your dreams. I hope you don't listen to any negativity, whether it's from outside forces or your own mind. And I hope if you fall down, you get up, because you deserve the world. Thank you so much for popping in, and have a super day.